Am I the asshole for not telling my parents that I'm going to a college states and states away from them? So I, 17 male, am going to college next month. My parents are strict. Their rules are no dating out unless in a group, no swearing, no girls allowed over or going to her house, no phone in the bedroom, no phone at night, no passwords, social media has to be checked by a parent, keep location on live 360, curfew 9:30 p.m, no whispering, and if I want to watch something, they have to review it first to see if it has a lot of inappropriate content, etc. Last year, I got a girlfriend, 18 female, and we've been friends since we were 12. She wasn't allowed over. If we went out on a date, it'd have to be with friends. I bought condoms a couple months after dating. My parents found them. They confiscated them and grounded me for a month. My girlfriend bought more for us because we still found our way around the rules, and no teen wants to have a baby accident just because adults are naive. When I was ungrounded, I got a job and bought my own phone. I figured if I showed responsibility by getting my own phone and paying the bill monthly, my parents would not treat me so childishly. They then got mad at me and said the same rules they had about the phone they bought me will apply to this one. Still couldn't use it in the bedroom, had to leave it in the living room at night, still had it checked frequently, and all of that. The most confusing thing about parents is they know their children will be considered adults at 18, but they shelter them and are overly strict with them as they get closer to that age. How will they function as adults when they have no sense of independence? Because I thought you were supposed to gradually loosen the reins as your kids get closer to 18. But I guess being power trips is more comforting. I live in New York, but I applied to several colleges in Texas, Louisiana, California, because I have family in those states. I paid for all of my admission fees, I have aid from FAFSA. I did apply for some colleges in New York because I needed info and documents from my parents. So after they'd upload it, I'd saved it to my laptop. I decided on UH, Uni of Houston. Fall season starts 2 weeks after I turn 18, so my parents can't really do anything. I spoke to my third cousin in Houston, and I'm gonna be with her. I wasn't gonna tell my parents until August got closer, but they found out recently. They are angry. My dad doesn't want to let me go, and I told him I'll be 18, so it's not his choice. They told me that I need to be close to home in case something happens. I said we have tons of extended family in Houston, and I'm going to be with a family member. My parents called me a selfish brat, then walked away from me while I was still trying to defend myself. We haven't had another conversation about it since. It's basically just silent treatment. I get why they're upset or worried because they don't want me far away, and I do love them, but it should not be a surprise that I'd do anything to get far away. Your parents just sound like typical controlling parents that don't want their kid to grow up, and they always want to have power trips over those said kids. Unfortunately, you're turning 18 soon, so that won't be their choice to have control over you anymore. And so no, I don't think you're the asshole for not telling your parents that you're going to a college that is very far away from them. I think you deserve your freedom from these people. Not the asshole. Now in the comments, Blue Beached Whale says, "Oh honey, not the asshole. What do they expect? They aren't mad that you're leaving, they're mad you will no longer be controlled by them. The second you're out of that house, a world of weight will come off your shoulders. Go live the life you deserve, and have the life you deserve. But be careful, they still have time to sabotage your going. Call the university and ask that if there are any calls to withdraw you, that they contact you. They can put a note in your file. And also, if you have a bank account that also has one of your parents on it, empty it out now, except for $5. Establish a new account once you're 18. And Gen X IA says, not the asshole. As the adult child of controlling parents, run and don't look back. You won't regret it. It'll be hard, but with hard work and determination, it'll be worth it. Good luck. My parents are just like OPs, except only with me. My brothers were allowed a lot more freedoms. Run and don't look back is exactly what I did, and it was the best decision I ever made. It was hard, OP is right. When you're sheltered like that, you don't know how to handle a lot of situations. But there was no way I was going to go back, so I figured out how to do a lot of things very fast. Unexposed is by user EmbarrassedBit8909, titled, Am I the asshole for lying about being pregnant to my family to protect my husband? I'm really sorry I didn't add this before, this post has really blown up, but anyway, content warning, transphobia. So my husband is a transgender man, and we've always wanted to start a family together. I have a huge fear of pregnancy, so he offered to carry the baby. It was an insane process. He had to stop taking testosterone for a long time, but he was amazing throughout the whole process, and I did everything in my power to help make him feel comfortable. None of my family knows that he is transgender. Homophobic, transphobic, all the phobics. But our friends know. He posted an ultrasound picture to his private Instagram, not knowing that my sister follows him on a burner account. Well, she saw the photo and told my whole family. They were furious that I wouldn't tell them. Our plan was to say that we adopted. They assumed I was the one pregnant and blew up at me. So I just let it go and rolled with the lie because I wasn't going to out my husband. The first couple of months I'd let them visit. Eventually I'd start eating big meals and purposely bloating myself to the point of discomfort so I looked pregnant. They'd remark around the 6-month mark that I was remarkably small, but I just played it off. Eventually I couldn't lie any longer, so I looked for every excuse in the book to not see my family. I turned down the offer of baby showers, gender reveal parties, anything that would require us seeing each other. Luckily, my family lived an hour away, and we all live busy lifestyles, so them randomly visiting wasn't an issue. The one time they did pop in unexpectedly, we were out of the house. If they FaceTimed, I made a point to be in bed feeling horribly sick, so I couldn't give a bump update. I lied my ass off, and they just thought that I had a rough pregnancy. My husband gave birth a year ago and went straight back on the testosterone, and now we're happy as ever. My family have met our daughter, and they adore her. A week ago, after an argument between myself and a friend, said friend decided to out my husband by messaging my family and included proof. They did it by adding everybody to a group chat, posting screenshots, and basically the whole story. Then saying, I'll leave you all to discuss. Then they left the chat and blocked me and my husband. In a transphobic rage, my mother raced to my home and all but beat my front door down. It wasn't pretty. I had to call the cops, I've been disowned, but that hasn't stopped the daily calls and texts coming from my parents, aunts, uncles, siblings, etc., leaving nasty transphobic slurs on my voicemail and other hateful crap. I ended up crying to my friend yesterday, who told me that I should have been more honest with my family, as it would have saved me a lot of heartache. That, or said we miscarried and then adopted later. I'm not happy that things played out the way they did, I just feel so sad now. Maybe it was wrong to lie to my family, but I feel like I had no choice. Edit, because I'd figured I'd put this in the main text, my husband has always encouraged me to maintain a relationship with my family. However, it was mostly for his sake. Personally, I mentally checked out years ago. But when they met him, they welcomed him with open arms and treated him like a son. Yes, it was conditional on him being presumed cisgender, however, we never intended for them to find out. He felt a familial love that he's never had from his own family before, which is why I kept my relationship with my parents at his request. If it weren't for him, I most likely would have cut them off a long time ago. And I'm sad that this has happened, but most of that sadness is for my husband rather than for me. Also, the friend in this story who outed him is obviously no longer a friend and never will be. The other friend who said that I should have told the truth is on thin ice. Now in the comments, Iopoly says, your ex-friend is a despicable excuse for a human. Block your family in every possible way, and block that ex-friend too. What your ex-friend did is truly reprehensible, and they did it because they wanted to hurt you and your husband in the worst way they possibly could. Your family dynamic is none of their damn business, and their behavior is disgusting. You and your husband don't have to justify anything to anyone about your relationship or how you choose to have a child. It's no one else's damn business. Congratulations to you and your husband on your child, and I hope you both come through this and carry on your lives knowing who truly loves and supports you. My jaw actually dropped reading that your friend, after an argument, decided to go bat crap effing nuclear and forcibly out your husband to a bunch of known phobics. Aside from being a total dick move, that is an insanely dangerous thing to do to another human being. Even if the argument had you totally in the wrong, you don't just out somebody. Wow, I'm absolutely furious on your behalf. And cause I'm totally petty, I'd post screenshots of the group chat y'all were dropped into and the abuse your family subsequently received. Then say that you'll leave all your mutuals to discuss and block anyone that comes to their defense. What reprehensible behavior. I sincerely hope you never let this person back into your life. And yeah, there's the whole you shouldn't have lied aspect. But people who know. I've lied my ass off to protect myself from bigots who very well could have done awful crap to me in situations that I couldn't escape. A stranger's comforts probably don't mean much, but I don't blame you for lying at all. I think you did what was best while respecting your husband's wishes, based on other comments where you said he wanted you to have a relationship with your family. I also think you should fortify your home. Doorbell cameras, security cams, motion-activated floodlights, remote activation dash cams, the absolute works. You've got a child to protect now, and you may need footage of the bullcrap they pull down the road. Wishing you, your husband, and your daughter the absolute best. And our next post is by user Diage868, titled, "Am I the asshole for how I handled my creepy coworker trying to get me to go out with him alone by pretending that it was a group thing?" I have a coworker, I'll call him Keith, who I feel like is starting to cross a line with me. He's always talking about his wife and how awful she is, and I'm always tuning him out or telling him I don't want to hear it, because it sounds like some midlife crisis crap, where he's trying to have an affair. Last week, he asked me to happy hour. I said maybe, is he getting a group together? And he was super vague and dodged the question, saying, we'll see who comes out. You never know with these things, and people having other stuff going on. I asked if he invited anyone else. My spidey senses were tingling, and he said yeah, some of the guys are on the team. I said cool. Who? He said that he just asked around. I was getting a super strong feeling he was trying to pretend that he tried to plan a group event, but what a coincidence. Only I showed up. I could have said no, I wasn't interested, but I honestly was feeling a little petty and wanted to catch him out in a lie. So I said that I didn't know about going out. It'd be fun to hang out with the group, but my dog was feeling sick, and I didn't feel good leaving him alone for long. I then went around to pretty much the whole team and was like, yo, there's a happy hour at Patty's, 5 p.m. You coming? Keith's planning it, did you already hear about it from him? And got like 15 people saying Keith didn't mention anything to them yet. About 10 of them were down to hang out. I texted Keith to say that my dog seemed okay, my roommate was taking care of him, so I was down to go to happy hour. So at 5, a whole group made their way to the bar. Keith included. I started to drive to the bar, and then I got a text from my roommate that my dog puked in my bed and I had to deal with it. A white lie. I guess Keith had to go out with a bunch of guys we work with, who thought that he'd organized the happy hour. I know he isn't the type to want to hang out with coworkers outside of work, so I feel like that was a bit of karma for trying to be two-faced with me. He ended up having to do the thing he was pretending to be doing. He told me the day later that it was rude of me to invite an additional number of people and then dip out. I said sorry, I thought it was a team happy hour like he was saying. Anyway, I couldn't make it because my dog was sick. Am I the asshole for being petty instead of direct? No, absolutely not. That's hilarious, and I think you've done the right thing in this situation. You called him out on his lie, he got mad that he actually had to follow through and hang out with a bunch of people and not cheat on his wife. It's obvious he wasn't so subtly trying to cover up the fact that he was going through a midlife crisis and trying to cheat with you. Unfortunately, that's not your problem, that's his problem, and he can be mad all he wants, but he's a dick when he takes that out on you, OP. I think you handled your creepy coworker in a very good way in this situation, so I'm gonna say not the asshole. Now in the comments, Mama of Twin Dragons says, not the asshole. Petty, sure, but screw Keith. He got exactly what he deserved, and hopefully got the message to leave you alone. Avoid that asshole like the plague. Slimy guys like that can be dangerous. And sometimes you need to be petty. Particularly the type of petty that is only petty if the other person is in the wrong. If Keith wasn't being an asshole, then what OP did wouldn't have been a problem for him. Not the asshole. Exactly. In the, non-existent in this case, event that he had been telling the truth, you'd have done him a favor by encouraging the team to come out and join his happy hour get-together. The only way this hurts or inconveniences him is if he was lying all along, which he obviously was. It's really a perfect solution. Not the asshole, this is hilarious. But if his behavior continues, you probably will need to be more direct with him and possibly escalate to HR if he becomes angry and aggressive, as I suspect he will. Time to CYA. Start documenting everything. What he says, screenshots of texts and emails, who witnessed him saying it, date and time, etc. Hopefully he leaves you alone, but if he doesn't, it's best to have as much proof as you can. And OP replies, I already went to HR about something else and they are super useless. I might as well send them an email to get it on paper, but I'm not expecting much. I actually have been really direct with him in the past, and he doesn't get it. So I felt like maybe pettiness might make more of a point than just saying I wasn't interested, because that doesn't seem to have clicked for him. But perhaps a super awkward happy hour would. Not the asshole. This was a stroke of genius and so well played. Hopefully he gets the message, but if not, I suggest going to HR soon and filing a quiet, non-impactful complaint to state that Keith has been behaving somewhat inappropriately, and you're planning on making your disinterests very clear. This could help you avoid backlash and preps HR to deal with the situation should it escalate. Again, bravo OP. Am I the asshole for asking my 12-year-old cousin why she wants to change the way she looks? So I'm 25 female and my cousin is 12 female. We come from a very close family, so I see her more as a little sister rather than a cousin. She's always been very into makeup and fashion. From 10, she wanted to try applying makeup, painting her nails, styling her hair, etc. I've always had the opinion that there's a fine line that shouldn't be crossed. For example, I wouldn't see painting her nails as an issue, but my auntie let her get acrylics at 10 years old, which I found ridiculous. I've never said anything as I don't think it's my place to do so, and if my auntie wishes to raise her daughter in that way, then I can't change that. But I've always been shocked at the things she lets her do. Over the past 6 months, it's been escalating. My cousin called me and asked me if I'd take her to get a piercing. She said her mum was allowing her to get a second lobe piercing on one ear. I said that if her mum approved, then sure. I took her, and in less than 6 months, she's ended up with 3 in each ear. She also had her other cousin put balayage highlights in her hair before she turned 12, which she told her dad was from lemon juice and the sun. I thought this was beginning to take it too far. She's also been allowed to get long acrylic nails and started wearing a lot more makeup and revealing clothing. It is currently school holidays, and my auntie's taken a few days off work to spend time with the kids. They came to our house for family dinner last night, and when my cousin walked in, I nearly fainted. She has completely bleached her beautiful natural hair to a brassy blonde color all over. She's also had extremely long acrylics put on, and to top it off, semi-permanent eyelash extensions applied. I obviously couldn't hide my shock because I could tell my auntie was offended by just the way I was looking. My cousin came over towards me and I said, "Why do you want to be blonde? You had such beautiful hair. You don't need to change yourself." Well, that caused the biggest fight I've ever had. My auntie went ballistic at me and stormed out of my house. She said I have problems and shouldn't have said anything. I genuinely wasn't trying to be rude. I was just shocked and actually concerned. My auntie is allowing my cousin to feel like the way she looks naturally isn't enough. Her 12-year-old friend has an eating disorder. I don't want my cousin to end up the same because she feels like the way she looks isn't good enough. Am I the asshole for saying something? Now in the comments, you're the asshole. Trying out new looks is a part of being young. Eating disorders are a whole different ballgame. And shaming someone and telling them they're doing something wrong for wanting to change how they look is not the way to help someone with body issues. This 12-year-old may need some guidance if she's wearing revealing clothes without understanding cultural context. But that conversation needs to happen with her mom. You're the asshole. You're also obsessing about her looks and thinking it's okay to superimpose your fine lines onto her. Back off. Also, it never works to try and talk/shame kids out of their choices. Lean in, understand where she's coming from, and why this is a passion of hers. My youngest sister did some absolutely terrible makeup and, interesting fashion choices when she was a tween/young teen. She's 18 now and has a fantastic frickin' handle on makeup and eye-popping outfits that are unique but still stylish. Horrible cat-style eyeliner is how you learn to do it right. Yeah, and if you don't get to try it out, then you end up like me, 26 and can't apply makeup to save my life. Aside from developing skill and talent, the piercings, hair coloring, makeup, clothing, etc. are all just forms of self-expression, and that's a really important thing, especially during the preteen years, as those can be really difficult for so many people. You're the asshole. At the end of the day, it's her body, not yours. Unless she's putting acid on her face or putting herself in danger, it is none of your business. Makeup can be a fun hobby. Nails can be a fun hobby. It's not about not feeling like how she looks is enough. It can be about adding to how you look and giving yourself confidence. Your body is a canvas to do what you want with, and makeup is a fun part of it. Why does she want to be blonde? Because it's a cool color. Why do people do anything? Because they want to. Hair is a cool form of expression. Earrings can come out, acrylic nails can come off, makeup comes off. Hair damage is definitely unfortunate, but it's no one else's choice but hers, and as long as her aunt is letting her know that that can do damage to her hair long term, why does it matter? Let her be. If you want to uplift her, tell her she looks beautiful no matter what she does. Don't judge her. Our next post is by user Am I the Arsehole the Groom? Titled, Am I the Arsehole for wanting more say in my wedding? So I know the common stereotype is that the woman plans the wedding and the man just shows up, but I actually want to get involved in planning this wedding. The problem is my fiancé often shoots down my ideas without even discussing it. Maybe my ideas wouldn't work in the end, but the fact that she refuses to even discuss so many of them really bothers me. Last time we argued about this, she told me my idea made no sense and that it wasn't even my decision to make, so my fiancé's decision was final and she wouldn't compromise. I told her how hurt I was and she said she was also hurt and upset that I made these suggestions. But I don't understand why she's mad at me. She's been making all of the decisions. Am I the asshole for wanting some say in my own wedding? Now in the comments, Glaxonflux says, I really need to know the ideas she shot down before I judge, especially since you said in a comment that they were things done in other weddings and you're a bit of a traditionalist. That makes me think your suggestions involve sexist traditions like the bride being given away or including obey in your vows. Edit, just saw your response to another comment asking for details also. Quote, They're pretty normal ideas, things that you commonly see at weddings. I'm a bit of a traditionalist. The things we argued about today was my fiancé wanting to have both her parents walk her down the aisle and having 4 flower girls and a couple flower boys. We aren't doing ring bearers because we don't trust little kids to carry rings, and if you give them fake ones, it seems kinda pointless. I don't like these ideas and asked to go the traditional route or have a compromise, but my fiancé won't. Look, 1, you don't get to decide who walks her down the aisle. 2, sounds like your issue with the flower kids is that she dare go against the traditional gender norm of only having flower girls. As long as the boys don't mind, it's really silly for you to require a sexist tradition. If these are the kinds of things you're suggesting, you're the asshole. And OP replies, it's not like that, it's stuff like, 1, I want her to pick one of her nieces to be a flower girl with my niece. 2 flower girls max is fine, but she wants all her nieces to be flower girls, and her nephews to be flower boys. I said they don't all need to be involved, and she said they do. 2, she wants both her parents to walk her down the aisle. I mentioned that the only times I've seen that is when the parents are divorced, and the mum would feel left out if only her ex got to do it. Of course, people who know her well would understand why she's doing it, but she doesn't know everyone who's coming, and they might just jump to conclusions. What kind of conclusions are you thinking people would jump to? That her parents are divorced? Oh, so scandalous! That she's Jewish? If I remember correctly, it's traditional for both sets of parents to walk their kids up in Jewish wedding ceremonies. You seem like you're clinging to tradition and things you commonly see at weddings, without considering how hurtful those things can be. And OP replies, she is Jewish, so it's fine if people think that. The ceremony isn't Jewish though because we are both atheists. Wait, do you dislike the idea of allowing religious traditions in your life as an atheist? Because as a fellow atheist, I personally believe that's an issue within yourself. We can respectfully coexist. And OP replies, it's just that most people coming aren't Jewish, so they wouldn't understand the tradition. When my cousin got married, she had both of her parents with her down the aisle because her dad had kinda been a deadbeat. She didn't want to walk with just her dad because it would be rude to her mom, who raised her. And she didn't want to leave out her dad because he had apologized and was trying to make up for not being around before. I don't want my extended family who don't know my fiancé's family to get the wrong idea. Look, man, I mean, who cares what they think? Your cousin had who she wanted with her. It could be for any reason. It is such a meaningful thing for your wife that most people aren't going to think twice about it or even remember. Regarding the walking down the aisle, this is really not for you to decide. She gives herself to you and wants both her parents to be witnesses and wants them to give her away. I really like this idea of hers. Why don't you like it? It has nothing to do with you. The flower girls and boys, like, do you just not like the number or the thing itself? She could definitely compromise on that one. And OP replies, I think there are too many kids first of all, and the boys don't need to be throwing flowers. That's just strange. My fiancée said she wasn't going to explain why most of the kids weren't picked, and I said we can't just give kids whatever they want in case they'll have a tantrum. The more I'm reading your comments, the more I'm being convinced that you're the asshole. What exactly is wrong with boys throwing flowers? And OP replies, nothing. But that's just not what I want for my wedding. There's nothing wrong with beach weddings either, but I still don't want one. I think we should compromise and have one niece from each side of the family as flower girls. 2 is enough, and it can represent the joining of families. So by compromise, you mean she should agree to do it the exact way you want. I'm guessing that the extra flower girls and boys that won't be part of the wedding if you get your way are on her side of the family. Am I right? And I love this guy's view of things. Compromise means doing the thing he wants. His ideas being shot down are him saying no to things that she wants. The only idea he has had is adding a bunch of labor for his fiancée to do before the wedding because that will make it more personal. Our next post is by user PurpleWolf4362, titled, Am I the asshole for telling a lie in therapy to get my dad and stepmom to leave me alone? So I, 16 female, did something in frustration, but I'm starting to feel guilty about it. When I was 12, my mum died in an accident. It was so sudden, and I was completely in shock and disbelief because I had literally saw her happy and healthy that same morning. It was rough on my dad and I, especially during that first year. However, I thought we were starting to find a new decent normal. What I didn't know is that 6 months after we buried my mum, my dad was dating again. It was a friend from work who had 2 kids of her own, and I was officially introduced to her as the girlfriend when I was 14, and they got married when I was 15. We also moved into another house because the house that my dad and I had wasn't big enough. I was not happy and tried to get out of going to the wedding, but I was made a junior bridesmaid. I was miserable and it showed. Everyone was so ready to be a family, but I put up walls and would only do stuff with them when I couldn't use homework or illness as an excuse. It was basically, if you're well enough to hang with friends, you can hang with us. My maternal aunt didn't live too far, and we talked regularly. I opened up to her once, and she convinced my dad to let me spend a long weekend with her. It was great, and I felt a sense of relief. When the pandemic first hit, the thing that I felt more sad about is that I couldn't get away and be with my aunt because she worked in the medical field. I got so depressed that I actually cried about it. I think someone overheard because my dad and stepmom decided to do therapy, but only I had to attend. I didn't really want to, but they pushed for it, and eventually I opened up about feeling sad that I felt so closed off from my family. Big mistake admitting that, because my dad brought up that my stepmom and siblings were here, which sparked an argument. It was just the 3 of us, plus the therapist, but I'm pretty sure my stepmom told her kids, because they started asking why I never saw them as family. My stepmom even admitted to feeling hurt, while my dad said that I should try harder to accept them because they accepted me. It felt like I was getting it at all ends, and then one day, after being asked for the millionth time, I blurted out a lie about how I knew my dad and stepmom were happy that my mum was dead because they were having an affair. They were shocked and denied this, but I saw my window and made a big fuss about it. Everyone is starting to back off, and it felt great getting some space, but now that I see how hurt my dad is, the guilt is starting to sink in. Am I the asshole, and should I come clean about my accusation being a lie? Edit to add, I keep seeing this in the comments, so I just wanted to set the record straight on a couple of things. 1. My dad's wife is the friend from work that I was talking about. 2. I've been going to therapy just for a little bit. She's a family therapist, and my dad and his wife has been present the whole time. 3. I also resented how I wasn't given the option to opt out like my stepmom's kids. And 4. The therapist has mentioned me possibly getting one-on-one sessions. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I think I'm the asshole because I lied to get what I want. I'm also starting to feel a little guilty because I hurt my dad's feelings. Now in the comments, Arthur's adult diaper says, it might have been true. That entire relationship and their reaction seems extremely suspicious. An innocent couple who cared about their child/stepchild would react exactly the same way though. There would be a panicked reevaluation of, wait, this is what's been going on in her head? How the F do we handle this? Plus remorse at never having realized that this was the issue. Dad and stepmom must be questioning everything now. What else don't they know about OP? How could they not have seen that this wasn't, they think, just garden variety non-acceptance, wondering if others in the family think this too, etc., etc. I don't think you can draw anything about the truth or otherwise of this from their response. And Quirky Bumblebee 461 says, you are getting a lot of bad advice in this post. People telling you it's okay to make up accusations. Your dad and stepmom put you in therapy ostensibly to try to help you. Honestly, if they had posted on the internet about what they should do if their child or stepchild was sad and didn't like the new family, the advice would have been, get them a therapist. I think you probably do believe deep down that your dad is happy that your mum is dead. You probably think, how else would he be able to be happy with a new wife and date 6 months after her death? Accusing him of an affair without reason is not cool, but your accusation probably did come from a place of real feelings. So yes, you should talk to your therapist about it, and when you're ready to articulate your feelings, you should talk to your family about it. Our next post is by user NoRisk7532, titled, "Am I the asshole if I don't use the AC when my nephew is over?" So I work as a teacher, so I have a lot of time with nothing to do during the summer. On account of this, I take care of my nephew sometimes during the summer for my brother. I don't mind it, and I like spending time with the kid. Recently, my brother found out that I never use the AC at my house. If I feel I need to cool down, I just do what I've done since forever. I lay down on the cool tile and place a bag of ice on my neck. I've literally done this since I was a teen, and my brother knows this. So instead of turning on the AC, I just have my nephew do the same thing. I got a call from my brother that I shouldn't have to do that anymore, especially having my nephew do it. It works really well though, and I just don't like the AC. Am I the asshole if I choose not to have the AC on when my nephew is over? Now in the comments, 7 That's a Nope says, "How hot does it get in your house? How old is your nephew?" And OP replies, "At the moment it's like 90s to low 100s outside. I don't know the inside temperature though. And he's 9. Edit to add, you said in another comment that it gets into the 100s outside, and you don't know how hot it gets inside. If you never run the AC, it very possibly gets well into the 90s or even hundreds inside. It could be even hotter inside than it is outside. If you want to lay on the floor with ice, that's your business. But to subject a 9-year-old to such misery when it's easily avoidable, you have AC and you said you can afford to run it, is ridiculous and unhealthy. If you continue to refuse to turn on the AC, hopefully your brother will put the well-being of his son first and will have someone else watch him. Hopefully that is even an option for him since childcare is expensive. Your brother is right to be upset that you're making a decision to subject his son to easily avoidable suffering. You're the asshole. You could make an electric-free air cooler for your windows out of plastic bottles and cardboard to help with the rest of your house if you want to limit your AC use. Your nephew may even enjoy making it with you. But really, you have to do something when he's over. You know how uncomfortable school buildings can get. Why should he have to deal with it in the summer too, just because you're cheap? You're the asshole. A 9-year-old in 90 degrees Fahrenheit / 32 degrees Celsius plus heat. That's just cruel, especially since you can afford to run the AC. Also, OP has been conditioning their body to tolerate that sort of heat since they were a kid. I think the big question here for OP is, how does the nephew feel? Does he ever feel dizzy, overheated, nauseated? Does he think it's fun or does he complain? You're the asshole. It's ridiculous to think what works for you would work for someone else. No fan? You said in another comment it's 90 to 100. It is absolutely a health risk for this kid. Could you at least have a room with AC? For my judgment, I never had AC in my own place. Then I got a cat. Where I lived, it could be 100 to 110 in my apartment. I got an AC, so he has options. It wasn't for me. That's what you do when you have a heart. Am I the asshole for asking my girlfriend to not rub her hairy leg against me in bed? So my girlfriend didn't shave for a few days, so her legs were prickly in bed. I made light of it by smiling and asking her to watch the shin. She did it more. I told her I was serious and to stop. She rolled over and went to bed. She called me the next morning asking why I didn't apologize. I told her I was confused because I wasn't saying she's gross or anything, just that I didn't want it touching me, and isn't shaving a choice? I wasn't attacking her looks, but she says she would never say something like this to me. I honestly view this as a hygiene choice, But am I the asshole for asking her to stop and then not apologizing? We haven't spoken in 4 days. Edit. I get what you're all saying that it's not bad hygiene. Poor word choice in my post. I did not say bad hygiene to her at any point. I should have just said that I view this as a grooming choice. I personally don't like the feeling of 4 or 5 day stubble on legs against me. I'm a male. I don't shave my legs. I do shave my face. My legs are extremely hairy, but it's something she says she likes. Now in the comments, you kind of had me on side until you said hygiene. Hygiene? There's nothing unhygienic about unshaven legs. You're the asshole. If she's unhygienic, he's an absolute pig. His legs are likely several times more hairy. You're the asshole. The fact that she felt that you wouldn't judge her for not shaving is a big trust thing. You essentially shamed her for not grooming herself to your satisfaction, which is honestly not your call. Lol, if she rubs her legs against his and he doesn't like the feeling of it, it's definitely not rude to ask her to stop. You're the asshole. When's the last time you shaved your legs? No, shaving one's legs isn't a hygiene choice. It has nothing to do with being clean. It is purely a fashion choice, and one which can have negative consequences. It is time-consuming, as time often better spent on other things, and can lead to problems like ingrown hairs and associated infections. Why does it matter his reason for not wanting to be touched? I always thought that if someone doesn't want to be touched, they should say so. But he's sharing a bed with someone. Expecting their legs not to touch you all night long is unreasonable. If he is that sensitive to touch, he needs to sleep on the couch. And he's not asking her not to touch him. He's complaining that her legs aren't shaved when they touch him. Clearly, if she shaved, he wouldn't complain. It's just a backdoor way to nag a woman about shaving her legs. Unless you're sleeping in a twin-sized bed, it's pretty easy to avoid touching someone else's legs in bed. He's complaining about sharp stubble irritating him, and he asked her to stop. I take it you've not slept with a sleep mover/roller. It's a lucky night when my husband isn't nearly on top of me while I cling to my corner of the queen-sized bed. I tried to go to the other side, but he seems to gravitate towards the warmth. I'd rather him not touch me too, especially since I hate him, but a sleeping person can't really be controlled. That's sleeping. When you're unconscious, not when you're awake and in full control of your body. He's asking her not to touch him when she's able to. Not the asshole. As long as you didn't push her to shave. Prickly legs are annoying, and I'm a girl, and I hate the feeling of them, and there's a huge difference between hair growing back after shaving and long leg hair. I'm sorry, anyone telling OP he's an asshole honestly saying it because he's a male. Because please, tell me why is he not allowed to tell his girlfriend, hey, please don't rub your legs on me. Not that she needs to shave, not that she's disgusting. He's just asked not to be touched. Also, OP never mentioned the hygiene reason to his girlfriend, and he said he didn't want to be touched. And honestly, it doesn't matter his reason if he doesn't want to be touched, he doesn't want to be touched. Am I the asshole for refusing to wrangle my boyfriend's grandma when I just want to eat my way through the wedding? So my boyfriend and I aren't very close to his mum and sister, but close enough to attend weddings. We are close to his grandparents who are divorced, and especially his grandmother Ruth. Ruth is a sweet lady, but she has a lot of issues. She never recovered from her husband leaving her for a younger woman. She has an unhealthy obsession with my boyfriend's mum Sarah, and when Sarah got married a few years ago, Ruth was an emotional mess the entire time. These are the things that she cried about. The groom wore a suit and not a tux to their outdoor cocktail attire wedding. She said he didn't love her daughter and is a piece of crap. Sarah didn't wear white, cue hysterics. Her ex was there with his new wife who was the same age as Sarah. She thought that she was dressed too sexy, which was not any sexier than anyone else, and wanted to go and comfort her. She made a comment about her ex being too dark and called him a racial slur. They're the same race. Sarah is so beautiful, and Ruth was fantasizing about what she would do if she looked like Sarah. Her other daughter didn't straighten her hair, and if she would just straighten it, she would look white. Finally, she cried because Sarah wasn't eating the wedding cake and was eating a cannoli instead. And she began to full-on wail about how Sarah's first wedding was more traditional, and Sarah deserved that again, and when they were trying to leave, she was clutching Sarah's arm and crying. My boyfriend stayed with her all night and tried to rein her in. Sarah got married at a gorgeous venue and had some of the best wedding food I've ever had. I don't get out much and would have liked to enjoy the night, but Ruth ruined it for me. Now my boyfriend's sister is getting married, Sarah is helping her plan, and they have serious money. They throw amazing weddings, and I'm sure it will be as nice as Sarah's, but it is her first marriage, so even bigger and more lavish. I am super excited. It's at a really nice historic hotel, and the food is going to be to die for. I just want to enjoy and have a nice date night with my boyfriend, but he's insisting that we stay with Ruth the entire time. I feel like maybe Sarah should, because we wrangled her so Sarah could have her big day. The issue is Sarah doesn't have much patience for this. His sister asked about seating and if there was anyone we would prefer to sit with. I asked to sit with some of his cousins, but he said Ruth couldn't sit at that table because her ex would be there with the new wife. I said I did not want to sit with Ruth. I wanted to eat my way through this wedding and party, and that I'm not responsible for Ruth's issues. He accused me of being selfish and uncaring. He feels like I'm abandoning Ruth, who has been so nice to us, and I only care about using his family for the money and stuff. We got into a little argument, and now I feel bad because Ruth does need someone, and the bride needs someone to keep Ruth under control. Now in the comments, Gemma2 says, leaning towards you're the asshole, mainly because it's your boyfriend's family and his choice who he wants to sit next to at the wedding. If he wants to sit near Ruth and keep an eye on her to help the bride and groom have a great wedding, that's really nice of him, and something to be commended. Your choices are basically suck it up or don't go, shrug. Anything else is kind of selfish really, and expecting him to not sit by Ruth is unrealistic. Boyfriend can keep an eye on his grandma. OP shouldn't have to babysit Ruth at every wedding. Maybe Ruth needs some therapy to help her get herself under control. Quote, my boyfriend stayed with her all night and tried to rein her in. Her complaint wasn't that she had to babysit her, it's that her boyfriend did, and that ruined her date night. Which is also a perfectly legitimate complaint. No, it isn't. The weddings of his mother and his sister are not a date night. It's not about OP at all, it's about the boyfriend's family. Big Presents 310 says, yeah, you're the asshole. Your boyfriend feels this is an obligation that he holds to his family, and instead of supporting him as he does this frustrating and difficult thing for the people he loves, you are going out of your way to make it harder and attempt to guilt him into not helping his grandmother. The wedding isn't about you. His relationship with his grandmother isn't about you. Stop making it about you. It seems every wedding is going to be her and boyfriend taking care of grandma, so everyone else can have a good time, ? Are they going to be expected to take care of grandma if they ever get married, so everyone else can have a good time? If grandma needs this much emotional support at every wedding, then they need to take turns or hire someone to help her out. Yeah, but they're not the bride and groom in this situation. This wedding isn't about them. The boyfriend is a relative who wants to do his part to ensure the event runs smoothly. OP is complaining that that means that she won't get to have a nice date night with him, when that's completely not the point of the event. Then why go? They're not being paid to babysit. This is no longer a friendly event. They're doing a job and not being paid for it. My family has a Ruth. When it comes to weddings, you have 3 options. 1. Invite Ruth and allow her to run wild and cause several big scenes, ruining the wedding. 2. Don't invite Ruth, and then you're sad because she's not there, and even though she's kinda nuts, you love your aunt, grandma, whatever, and you want her at your special event. This also probably permanently destroys your relationship with her and causes drama with other family members. Or 3, invite Ruth and have a couple family members who don't have wedding roles but are closely related to Ruth try to keep her out of trouble. So people go with option 3. Ruth wranglers usually just go with it, since the alternatives are to skip the wedding or watch as your Ruth causes a big scene, ruining your enjoyment of the wedding anyways. And sure, maybe someone else could wrangle Ruth, but that relies on another family member doing it. My dad and I wrangled our Ruth for my cousin's wedding, and it'll be my aunt and cousin's job to wrangle Ruth during my wedding. Our next post is by user Alahala110099, titled, Am I the asshole for refusing to help my friend with her pregnancy? So my, female 28, friend, female 26, got pregnant from a one-night stand. Since then, she's been on the fence about keeping it or not. She was one of my best friends in school, so we go a long way back. When she told me, I was very clear about my beliefs and how I could never support her pregnancy. She got upset, but we let the topic go because we've known each other for years, so she already knows me. A few days ago, she called me crying and telling me she made up her mind and wanted to get an abortion. She asked for help financially and emotionally because it's illegal in my country. So the only option is to travel to a nearby country, and I was the only one who would help her. Her family is conservative and religious. I offered to go with her and pay for the trip. I made an estimate and it would be about $9,000 for the two of us. We promised to meet in 2 days in her apartment to talk in detail about the plans. I told her everything about it and she wasn't convinced. She then tried to talk me into giving her the money, and I refused. She ended up getting mad and said that I should give her the money to support her and her child. I told her she would only get my money and support for an abortion. She was welcome to keep the kid and it was her choice, but I wouldn't help her in any way, as I'm against it in principle and she should respect my beliefs and not try to trick me into giving her money. She called every mutual friend we ever had and told them about it, and now I have people I haven't talked to in years nagging me about helping her. Am I the asshole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I might be the asshole for not helping her unless she fits my beliefs of not making more humans for this world. Now in the comments, info. I'm confused about your beliefs in this case. It sounds like you're fine with your friend getting an abortion, but not okay with her having the baby because she's not married / had a one-night stand. Is the question really, am I the asshole for offering my friend money to help her get an abortion, but not offering her money to put towards funding the child if she chooses to have it? In the explanation section, OP says they don't believe we need more humans on the earth. Sounds like it's an environmental issue, not that they take issue with the one-night stand. Just my inference. There's also the chance that OP doesn't think people should have kids if they cannot afford them, aka if the friend is living in a one-bedroom, paper-thin walls, rat-infested apartment and is ridden in years of debt and would be unable to even feed her new baby, then I could see why OP is against her having the child. Not only that, but even if OP was open to giving her some money, I think OP would still be not the asshole if she decided against it after this, because her friend actively lied to OP in order to get thousands of dollars from her. OP's friend is so broke that $9,000 in another currency, which is meant to pay for an overnight trip, a hotel, and an abortion, is an unaffordable expense. I'd guess that's the equivalent of $1,000 US. It really doesn't sound like a single mother in a conservative country who's also broke is in a financial position where having a child is a good idea. Not the asshole. I would have taken the same stance you did. If she can't afford to have the child, or even afford to have an abortion, she should not be having a child. She made her choices and needs to live up to the responsibilities they bring. Her poor life choices are not your responsibility to fix. The amount of entitlement she is displaying, in my opinion, shows she's really not worth keeping around as a friend. She should take the bio father to court, not mooch off of the people in her life. Mostly I agree with you, with one exception depending on where they live. OP is 100% entitled to refuse financially supporting their friend and having their child, as it is OP's money and they can use it to their pleasing. OP can also withdraw emotional support / friendship without being an asshole solely due to the fact that the friend tried to trick them into supporting her. This is nothing a friend should or would do. In case they live in a country with good healthcare though, having a child that costs $9,000 over the course of months or even years is something very different than having an abortion that costs $9,000 like right now. And Sci-Fi Emma says, "Not the asshole. I hope those nagging have contributed money to the cause. This, let the naggers bankroll her." And our next post is by user EmbarrassedMom131, titled, "Am I the asshole for telling my daughter she needs to leave because she does OnlyFans?" So my daughter, female 25, has been pole dancing for 7 years. She enjoys it a lot and as far as I know, is very good at it. To my knowledge, she's only used it for exercise and until recently had a steady job in a law firm, but due to the pandemic, her firm went bankrupt and she lost her job. As a result of this, she had to move back home. Since she came home, she looked for a job for a month or so and then just stopped. I figured she was taking a break, and since she seemed fine and is an adult, I didn't push it. After all, we're still in a pandemic. Recently, she seemed to have more money and has told me that she's going to have enough to put a down payment on a house soon. I told her I was proud of her and I'm glad she would be financially okay. However, recently I found out how she was earning that money. It got brought to my attention she was selling videos of herself pole dancing. I was shocked, especially as I was informed it looked like many of her videos were filmed in my house. She has a pole in her room that she uses for exercise. I confronted her about it, and she seemed to consider it a non-issue, saying, "I'm not naked. No one will know it's in your house. It's not exactly sex work, it's an art form." I told her that she needed to delete the videos and account or leave. She got upset, but I told her I'm not having that in my house. She's now packing her stuff up and moving in with a friend until she has enough for her deposit. Unbelievably, she's told people about this and I'm now getting called an arsehole. So am I the arsehole in this situation? I feel I might have overreacted, but also like this is a serious issue. Edit. I have no issue with her doing it in her own house, a studio, a strip club, or wherever. But I don't want videos of my house put up. That is what my issue was, not what she was doing. It was that she was doing it in my house. And edit 2, so it's almost laughable I have to say this, but I'd appreciate if all the people telling me it's perfectly safe would stop sending me threats. And edit 3, stop messaging me asking me for her OnlyFans. Personally, to weigh in on this one, I'm gonna say you're the arsehole for just the fact that you care about it being in your house. If it's not doing an entire tour of your house and giving people the location and where they're gonna break in and where all the valuables are, I don't see an issue with this. I get that it's your house, your rules with this situation, and you're entitled to that one. I just think the way that you're dealing with this situation is wrong. You've done the wrong thing in this situation. And that is demonstrated by everyone else that sees this situation, sees what you have done, and are now calling you an arsehole. Even if you try to explain the situation to them and give them your side, I would bet they're still going to call you an arsehole. So for that reason, you're the arsehole. Now in the comments, I'm going to say not the arsehole since you're entitled to have rules for your own house. But having said that, I'm not sure what prize you thought you were going to win for handling the situation this way. If this rule is more important than a relationship with your daughter, then congratulations, I guess. I think this is the best response I've ever seen in this subreddit. No, it's a terrible response. This subreddit needs to stop with the whole your house, your rules bullcrap. You people literally believe it's impossible to be an arsehole in your own house. Let's say I have a pizza and a homeless person asks me for a slice. I ordered way too much and I was going to throw out the leftovers anyways, but I decided I'd rather throw it out in the trash in front of his face just for the lols. It was my pizza, the only one that has a right to it is me. The homeless person had no right to it, however, I'm still a giant arsehole. Not sure why that's such a hard concept for people to grasp. That's a horrible analogy. Her parents are uncomfortable with her filming videos from inside their home, specifically videos that are being sold to strangers for sexual purposes. This is OnlyFans we're talking about. You may think that this is an over-the-top reaction, but they're allowed to set this rule when their daughter is staying rent-free with them. It's not her house/address that she is potentially exposing to the world. While I personally think no assholes here, I don't have a problem with what the daughter is doing. It has nothing at all to do with your BS pizza story. It sounds like you actually have more issue with it than you think, OP. Maybe you're not being honest with yourself about how you feel, because if you were truly fine with it, it wouldn't really matter where she did it. For example, if the videos were her teaching a language or something like that, you wouldn't care where she recorded it. You would just be proud of her for being resourceful and generating income. OP's username is indicative of this being more than just a privacy concern. You're the asshole. I don't want videos of my house. Yeah, because your bedrooms are so distinct, everyone will know. Then that big scarlet A on your house. Rolls eyes. You don't approve. That's it. You can claim that it's only about location, but that's really BS. You're in the wrong here. And Goblin says, I don't understand your reasoning at all. You don't want her filming in your house because you're worried about stalkers, but you'd be fine if she filmed in a studio and still lived with you. But her ISP would be the same. That's what they would track. She could just get a VPN and you wouldn't have to worry. But here's the thing that really confuses me. You know who gets stalked a lot? Lawyers. Every lawyer I've known was paranoid about not letting anyone know where they lived. They get disgruntled clients, angry families, etc. Women get harassed for nothing, for going to the grocery store, for walking on the street, being a waitress, wearing a ponytail. People who are successful on social media do have to deal with crazy fans. It doesn't matter what their content is or their gender, just if you would feel the same about her videos if she was vlogging on YouTube or something, go ahead and set your boundaries, express your worries about fan harassment, but it feels like it's because of the pole dancing. Just get a VPN, you're the asshole. Am I the asshole for calling a pregnant woman an incubator and refusing to talk to her? So I visited my family this summer. My family and I are all vaccinated, so my parents wanted to hold a small 4th of July gathering. Unfortunately, a couple who are openly homophobic, transphobic, and sexist was also invited. I came out to my parents as non-binary and bisexual last summer, but they don't really understand LGBTQ identities due to language barriers. However, I was hoping that coming out to them would encourage them to cut ties from this couple. Lo and behold, the two showed up at the 4th of July gathering. The woman proceeded to ask non-stop about when I'll be getting a boyfriend so that my parents can have grandchildren. She firmly bases her whole identity around being a mother. She has 3 kids and is currently pregnant with another, and kept talking about how if I wait too long, I will lose the chance to be a mother. She also implied that women's main/sole purpose is to give birth and raise the next generation, and that women who work are selfish people. I became frustrated and blurted out, "Good thing I'm not a woman and that I don't ever want kids." She froze for a second and kind of looked me up and down, trying to see if I was obviously transitioning, and then left. I was left alone for a couple of minutes until the couple all came to confront me. I reiterated that I was non-binary and that they should stop asking me about children. Then the woman tried to argue with me, but at this point I was extremely fed up. So I turned to her husband and asked him, "Why is your baby incubator still trying to talk to me? Doesn't it have anything else to be doing?" Everyone heard me say that, including my parents, who hurried over to see what was going on. I told them what had happened and that I was tired of being bothered by their friends. Then I left because I knew my parents would side with them. After that, the party fizzled out. My parents tried to apologize on my behalf, I think, but the couple left almost immediately, and everyone else just trickled out afterwards because it was so awkward. Previously, the woman has talked about how women should remain silent when there are men talking, so my reasoning is that I was simply using her own beliefs against her. My mother thinks that I was an asshole for A, coming out during a party, instead of keeping the peace when I know they're LGBTQ phobic, B, calling the woman an incubator, C, stressing a pregnant woman out, and D, causing her to lose a friend. My sister thinks that the incubator comment was hilarious, but thinks I'm an asshole for calling the woman an it. I don't want to misgender people, but it was the best way to get my point across to someone who thinks women are property. After a couple of days of fierce arguments in my parents' house, I returned home, but my parents keep blowing up on my phone to get me to apologize to their friends. I do think she deserved it, and it was the best way to get them to stop talking to me, and I don't want to apologize. Am I the asshole? My vote is everyone sucks here for this situation. You both just seem like petty, stupid people fighting over something that shouldn't be issues, yet both of you decided to say words that you shouldn't have said to each other and just push agendas on each other. No. Neither of you should be doing those in social situations, especially when your parents' reputation is on the line and they've done nothing wrong. Both of you were dicks in this instance. I'm saying everyone sucks here. Now in the comments, everyone sucks here. Don't try to justify calling her it. You know what you were doing when you said that. She knew what she was doing when she implied that they were useless for not having as many kids as possible. Everyone sucks here. The couple may have been assholes, but that doesn't negate that calling her an incubator is extremely rude and offensive. You can call someone out for being offensive without being offensive back. Calling a woman an incubator emboldens other sexist jerks to think that it's okay to talk like that. It also forces other women who aren't assholes to hear another woman reduced to an incubator. It is never okay to be sexist, racist, or any ist as a way to get back at someone for insulting you. Everyone sucks here. Being an asshole to an asshole doesn't make you less of an asshole. As a fellow non-binary and bisexual person, everyone sucks here. She was way out of line and sounds like a horrible bigot, and your parents are kind of jerks for maintaining a relationship with people so hateful towards their child. But calling a woman it and an incubator is misogynistic AF. Even if it was also kind of funny, I'll grant you that. It's crappy towards all women and mothers, and it feels like all you really did was let her drag you closer to her bigoted level. With all that being said, I'm hesitant to say that you should apologize to her. Even if you were out of line, she was awful to you first, and her attitude towards LGBTQ+ people is unacceptable. You shouldn't have to interact with her and her husband at all for your own well-being. Edited to add, I'm also not saying you're in any way obligated to be polite to her, because you certainly were not, but you could have called her out in a way that wasn't misogynistic. And back to the post, OP leaves an edit and says, although I do appreciate the support of everyone who said I was not the asshole, after some reflection and reading through this thread, I've decided to apologize to my parents for the blow-up, but not to apologize to the couple. I accept that I was an asshole, justified though, and I recognize how my comments could have caused others to feel bad about pregnancy and family without context, and that there was probably a better way to handle the situation. I was already dealing with other issues at the time, and it just exploded out of me. Not an excuse, but an explanation. Taking the high road was the last thing on my mind after dealing with similar incidents politely in the past. Our next post is by user SpiritedLeague2978, titled, Am I the asshole for telling my sister to suck it up after she argued with my parents about college? So I'm a rising senior in college and my sister is advancing to a prestigious college in the fall. Recently, my sister and my parents have been arguing about her choice in major. She wants to be a creative writing major, and my parents, especially my father, want her to choose something more traditional with a bigger and potentially more lucrative career path. Recently, my sister has come to me to complain about the fact that she cannot be a creative writing major and expected me to sympathize. I do not. Firstly, I explained to her how lucky she is to attend a private university without incurring life-altering debt. My family is quite well off, and my parents intend to pay for mine and my siblings' college in cash with no loans involved. With my parents making such a significant financial commitment, I feel like they're entitled to have a say in our education. For instance, my dad likes to say don't treat college like high school, treat it like a job with a $70,000 per year salary paid by me. Secondly, I have no sympathy because if it were completely up to me, I would have majored in history, as I'm extremely passionate about it, but my dad immediately shut that down. I ended up in public policy. Would I have been happier as a history major? Yes, but I didn't throw a fit when my dad rejected my education plan. I adapted. Sometimes we need to sacrifice happiness for feasibility. My sister is ordinarily mature, and I'm surprised she threw a tantrum over this and doesn't understand basic facts of life as an adult going into college. My sister isn't speaking to me or my parents. She basically stays in her room the whole day. Was I too harsh in my criticism of her? Should I have explained to her why she can't be a creative writing major in a different, more gentle way? Now in the comments, you're the asshole. If you're willing to pay for your child's education, it should be no strings attached, in terms of the actual education plan. What your dad is basically saying, and what he said to you, is that you should sacrifice happiness in favor of money. Furthermore, there is no guarantee that a creative writing major wouldn't net her a good paying job, just as there's no guarantee that your public policy major will net you a good paying job. The fact that your dad has done this to both you and your sister leads me to believe that he enjoys holding his money over your heads in order to control you. So you're the asshole for defending this. I went to college knowing I hoped to be a novelist one day, but also knowing I'd most likely need to earn a living in some other way for years until maybe someday I sold a book. I majored in journalism and worked in the field for years. It was good. I was writing every day, I met all kinds of interesting people, and covered a lot of interesting things. I would have told your sister that she's highly unlikely to be able to earn a living straight out of college as a creative writer, and she needs to know how she'll make her money until she can live off of her writing. She can minor in creative writing, or if she wants it badly enough, do a double major, writing and something practical. And Dan the Snack Tack says, yes, you are the asshole OP. Your sister doesn't want to take your dad's bullcrap. You've swallowed it. If she wants to major in writing, she can. She just has to pay, which is fine. But can you seriously not see that your dad is a major asshole? The whole point of university is to set yourself up for the job you want. You had your dad pay for your degree, which is fine, which meant you have to play by his rules. The least you could have done is offered a solution or advice, or some sympathy, instead of being as cold as your dad. I agree. Just because he sold out his interests doesn't mean his sister should. While I see benefits in pursuing more potentially lucrative studies, forcing someone from doing what would make them happy makes you the asshole, and the parents. Regardless of whether they believe they have a say in her life because they're paying, doesn't absolve them or you from being an asshole. Our next post is by user RyanWrites92, titled, Am I the asshole for not assimilating to my flatmates and property owners' eco-friendly expectations? So my flatmate is a close friend, and his family owns our flat. They gave me a reasonable deal, so I really try to do my part around the house, but my flatmate is so obsessed with being eco-friendly, and it feels like such an overstep on my life. For example, he constantly requests I use reusable shopping bags and insists I return single-use to the return bin at the shops. He always asks me to get a reusable coffee cup, but I'm happy with my single-use paper cups. He wants me to use a handkerchief to blow on my nose instead of tissue paper. Anytime something goes in the trash that could be recycled, he points it out. He's even brought up turning off the hot water boiler, except for certain times of the day. But as a tenant, I feel unrestricted access to hot water is a right. I respect that I'm in his home and therefore have to adjust to my lifestyle, but out of principle, I really just refuse to change my personal habits that are unrelated to roommate responsibilities. Now he thinks I'm an asshole and caught up in outdated habits for no good reason. Even if he's right, it's not his business. Am I the asshole? And edit, I do recycle and try to use recyclable bags, but it's not a priority to me, so neither are on my mind each and every time I go to the shop or throw something in the trash. And I use single-use cups because I go to Pret for my coffees. When I make coffee or tea at home, I use a mug. Now in the comments, ex-Chelsea says, "Everyone sucks here. Look, I get that it's your life and he shouldn't tell you how to live it, and I definitely understand not wanting to use a handkerchief or wanting hot water all day. But I don't get why you can't use reusable bags and why you have a problem with him pointing out something should be recycled. We should recycle everything that can be recycled. To me, it just sounds like you don't want to give any cares about the environment." Yep, everyone sucks here. If OP pays for the place, he has every right to his privacy. However, OP sounds like a lazy, inconsiderate person. It's hard not to call you an ass. Personally, I think you're the asshole. It's not that hard to use reusable cups or use reusable shopping bags. I understand the hot water part, but you should be able to adapt. It's his family's flat after all. You should at least make an effort to adapt. Plus, you know, he wants to save the environment. You should too. It's the control aspect though. Why does his roommate get to have this level of control over his personal habits unrelated to joint maintenance of the living space? Also, no one's personal habits are going to save the environment. If what we really care about is saving the environment, my take is that putting this much energy into changing personal habits and attempting to control the personal habits of others can take away from the effort required to collectively work to end, or at least tightly regulate, global capitalism. Perhaps this choosing beggar would prefer all the freedom he would get if he paid market price for something at some point, instead of accepting the friends and family's discount for lodging and then complaining bitterly about the terms. Everyone sucks here. Aside from the handkerchief and the water heater, these sound like pretty reasonable requests. Honestly, I wouldn't carry around a cloth full of snot, so I don't blame you on that one. Being told you have to make them, however, is an overstep on his part, and shouldn't be a requirement to live there. I could see how it might distress him, watching you be so not eco-friendly. But unless it's in the lease, he really shouldn't enforce it. Next post is by user Family Vacation Beds, titled, "Am I the asshole for making grandma sleep in the kids' room so that 2 teenagers can have their own room?" This sounds absolutely horrible, but please read this through. We are planning on our first family beach trip in years this year. We have 17 people, 4 couples, 7 kids from ages 3 to 12, 2 teenagers, and my mum, i.e. my grandmother. We were able to find a house with 5 bedrooms right on the beach. 2 kid-style rooms with 3 bunk beds each, 2 rooms with 2 double beds each, and a bedroom with a queen bed. The assumption would be that the couples have the double bed bedrooms, the kids and the teenagers are in the bedroom split by gender, and grandma would get the queen bedroom for herself. But we're not sure. Some of us think that the 2 teenagers need to be put in the queen bedroom, which would force grandma into the kids' bedroom. Normally, this would not even be a question, but we think it makes sense here. I'm not going to get into specifics for privacy, but with the teenagers' combined issues, nighttime with them involves one or both of them waking up to deal with medical issues, which is often uncontrollably loud and not exactly the easiest thing to be around as an adult with context, let alone a young child. There is also a very high chance that at least one seizure will happen over the course of the week. They get along perfectly well, so they won't disturb each other. The queen room is on the opposite side of the house to the other rooms. In addition, the bathroom for the queen room is an ensuite and is next to the washer/dryer, which would allow for related issues to be dealt with as discreetly as possible and would ensure that the kids won't be disturbed. Some of us think that it shouldn't matter, and that kicking out an elderly woman to sleep on a bunk bed so that children can have their own room is ridiculous no matter what, but we're not so sure. We honestly think that this would be better for everyone's needs. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. Grandma is in her late 70s, and while she's healthy, she obviously does have some joint pain like anyone her age, so a bunk bed may not be the most comfortable experience for her. Beyond that, giving kids their own room over the family matriarch would also be favoring them in a way that is unheard of, at least on paper, and that's not an easy thing to reconcile. Now in the comments, Darcy Knits says, "You're the asshole. 17 people in one house? Let's be real, there's going to be very little privacy. Grandma is going to need space to nap and sleep. It would make more sense for one of the couples to sleep with the kids and have Grandma sleep in one of the twin beds if the queen-size bed is needed for the teens. I also feel like the parents of the kids should make the sacrifice. Grandma shouldn't have to. Right? It's their children, their sacrifice. The kids are cousins, so we take the 4 parents and put them in the bunk room and voila, Grandma gets a room to herself. Perfect. While I agree that Grandma should not get the short end of the stick when someone else is planning, has anyone actually asked Grandma what she thinks? If you're planning it and didn't get a house with enough rooms, you should ultimately be the one that sacrifices. But what has Grandma said? Some people wouldn't care and will sleep wherever due to the space limit. Some people might actually think that being in the room with the kids could be fun like a sleepover, and some people would feel like the lack of privacy is too much. I had a grandma that would actively sign up for a sleepover with the kids, and it was a blast. If there were hotel rooms, we would all go to her room, or if we were at her daughter's house, she would come up from her room to play with us. I also had a grandma that stayed in her room and did not wish to spend too much time with smaller children. Info: why can't parents be the one with the kids and Grandma gets a couple's room? Grandma should get a room over the parents in my opinion. 100% correct. We've slept in a room with our younger kids on beach vacations for this reason. Grandparents are older and need a place to rest. When we lived far away from grandparents, we've given them our bedroom in our own home so they can have privacy and a more comfortable bed. It does help that my in-laws are very kind and accommodating in general. And OP, I understand your logic, but it should be the parents who sacrifice their room. Maybe dad stays with the kids and mum sleeps in the queen bedroom with grandma. Though I think that also depends on who's paying. If grandma does end up staying with the kids, she shouldn't have to pay. Ultimately, it should be discussed with grandma and not after you've made the decision. I don't feel I have enough info to make a judgment. And OP replies, we aren't making grandma pay regardless, because that's not how we would do things. That's not an excuse for giving her terrible accommodations. Someone or someones are being thoughtless at best and very selfish at worst. Am I the asshole for kicking my sister out of my family gathering after comments about my adopted son? Some feel I should have handled the situation better, but I don't see how I'm wrong. Me and my sister, 37 female, are not as close as we used to be because of some messed up stuff that happened years ago. I had my son Jesse, 9, pretty young. Months after that, and to my surprise, my ex was pregnant again. Only, I knew it wasn't me, because having an infant to take care of and provide for left me with zero interest in sex, and we found out that it was my sister's fiancé, ex now, that she was seeing behind our backs. It hurt. Worst pain ever, but for my son's sake I tried to get past it. I come from a family of half-sibs too, so I wanted my son to be close to his half-brother, Keith. Surprise, not only were they, my ex and my sister's ex, horrible lying cheaters, but also terrible parents. Both got hooked on drugs and it only escalated from there. He got locked up when Keith was 3. This particular issue with my sister happened a couple years ago. My ex got sick, she was scared of Keith ending up in foster care like her, and I didn't want that for him either. I legally adopted him before she passed away when he was 6. Not everyone in my family was on board at first, but he's the kind of kid that's hard not to love, so they warmed up to him. My sister never did. She hated that I brought the son of her ex-fiancé into my family, and I understood why it was painful, but Keith's and Jesse's best interests were my main priority. That's how we drifted apart. Last weekend was my birthday, and we had a small barbecue at my place. My parents have tried hard to mend things between us, so they convinced me to let her come so we can chat. I thought that meant she was cool with Keith, because obviously the 3 of us are a package deal. I asked my parents how would she feel about Keith. They said not to worry about it. Again, I took it as she came around. Only she wasn't told he would also be present. But how could he not be? He lives there. My sister got there, and she was mad when she saw him. She very specifically said, "I thought this was family only. What's he doing here?" Loud enough where he could have easily heard, but thankfully he was playing with his brother. My sister was pissed because my parents told her Keith wouldn't be around, and I got pissed when she told me that she didn't want him here, expecting me to do something about it. So I just told her to leave, and she's not welcome here then. There was some back and forth from her and my parents. I didn't want that kind of talk around my sons, so I still made her leave. My mum seems to think I was a huge asshole for kicking her out of my party instead of trying to work things out. Something like, they take Keith somewhere out of sight while me and her talk. But to me, what's the point of us working it out if that's how she still feels towards my son? Well, this is still causing some conflict since I escalated the feud by making her leave instead of actually talking to her. Am I the asshole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I made the situation worse with my sister by kicking her out of my party instead of compromising for her and talking things out. Personally, I don't think you made the situation worse. I think you diffused the situation, and if she's this angry about the son, I don't think there's any changing that in an efficient manner and in a good manner while she's at this party angry. I think the best thing for you to do was to kick her out, and it was best for everyone to not have her there causing a scene. Your parents obviously aren't viewing it that way, and I don't understand why they're not. Regardless, I think that you're not the asshole for this one. Your sister very much is. Now in the comments, not the asshole. Regardless of what happened in the past between consenting adults, Keith is a child and is absolutely innocent. Bless you, OP, for having such a huge heart and opening up your home to another son. You rock. Who wants to bet that poor kid heard but pretended not to? Yeah, little ears hear everything. When my son was 1, we bought a new AC unit, and I mentioned in passing to my in-laws that we used the vacation money for it. Weeks later, I was looking at pictures of my son's daycare playgroup with him, and he points at one of his friends, Abby. I said, "Yes, Abby's on vacation this week. That's why she's not at daycare." And he looked at me, pointed at the AC, and said, "Vacation." They hear and remember everything. Leslie Laugh says, "Let me get this straight. Essentially, the same exact thing happens to both you and your sister. You were both cheated on, and you do a remarkably decent thing and adopt the child that resulted from it, yet she can't even be in the same room as said child? Why does she think that her pain from said incident is so much more traumatic than yours? Does she even realize, comparatively speaking, what a petty little human she must be? Dude, you are so not the asshole, and kudos for being a generally good human. We need more people like you in the world today." And the OP replies, "I don't know. People handle this stuff different, I guess. For me, I had my son to think about, and that I didn't want him growing up without knowing his other brother. Therapy for sure was a huge help. I wish she'd believe in that kind of thing, or at least give it a try." US Justice Department replies, "She's chosen to handle it like a brat and to punish a child. Keith is old enough for her to have plenty of time to process her loss. Also, Keith lost his mum and bio dad as a child. She, on the other hand, lost a crappy fiancé as an adult. It's really pathetic that she doesn't have a sense of perspective here. You don't take crap out on kids. They're innocent. You give them the best, and you are kind to them. Period. You have a good heart. Trust your instincts and enjoy your babies. Lord knows they grow up too fast for you to waste time on anyone who doesn't love them and support them as you parent them." Our next post is by user A Movie Thing, titled, "Am I the asshole for shutting off the movie halfway through and making my boyfriend feel bad?" So my boyfriend Wyatt and I always watch movies together every time we have days off that end up on the same day, especially since the pandemic. And we go back and forth on who picks the movie. But I've noticed he's usually talking through my movie choices, either pointing out plot holes or just talking down about the movie in one way or another. I never act this way when it's his turn to pick the movie, even if I don't care for it. Like the last movie he chose, The Fountain. I was so confused until halfway through, and then bored for the rest of the film. But I didn't talk during the movie or constantly dump on it either, and even at the end when he asked what I thought, I said it was alright, even though I thought the movie wasn't good. I tried to do a bunch of things all at once and ended up doing nothing, but he seemed really fond of it, so I didn't want to hurt his feelings. But he doesn't seem to have that mindset when it comes to him watching my pics. I've told him to shush and to just watch the movies, but he just sighs loudly and says they're boring. If I tell him to stop, he gets all huffy and goes totally silent, and usually takes his phone out to play a game or scroll the internet, totally ignoring me and the movie. It really hurts my feelings. And yesterday was my turn to choose again, and I picked a good movie that really hit me hard as a kid. I bawled when I first watched it, and I still tear up to this day. And I told him the movie was special to me, but he barely got 10 minutes into it before he started up, saying that it was boring and childish. It's a kid's movie, but that doesn't make it boring. I was getting upset, and before the big part of the movie even got close, I just couldn't take it anymore. I felt like him acting this way during a super important part would ruin the movie for me, maybe forever, so I just got up and turned it off. He asked what I was doing, and I told him I didn't want to have the movie ruined for me, so it was better if I just turn it off. He said I was being a baby and to turn it back on. I refused and just told him to pick something to watch instead, then I sat on the couch. He got mad and said that if I was going to be dramatic like this, then he didn't want to watch anything with me, and got up and went to his room and slammed the door. This happened the other day, and he's been giving me the cold shoulder, and when I asked why, he said he wants an apology for making him feel like dirt. Should I apologize? Did I really make a huge deal out of just a movie? Am I the asshole? I've gotten a lot of comments and IMs asking what the movie I chose was. It was The Bridge to AmITheA. It's not the best movie ever, but it was the first kids movie I watched when I was young that really moved me and made me cry. I personally think that The Bridge to AmITheA, it was a great movie, and still is, and I honestly thought that was the first movie that came to mind when they mentioned this, so much so that I went and watched the trailer, and then the death scene, and Jesus. Yeah, no, still hurts a little bit, that one. Critiquing a movie that your friend really likes while still watching the movie is a bit of a dick move. It's not the time and place. Maybe if they're into that thing and it's a joke between you guys, that's fine, but obviously it isn't cool with OP, and the boyfriend continues to do that regardless. And obviously the double standard of him not doing it when it's his movie sucks also. OP doesn't need to apologize for making him feel like dirt when I feel like he's done much worse in this instance. You didn't make a huge deal out of just a movie. It goes beyond that. It's out of his actions and his habits and the way he's continuously treated you. He feels bad that he's getting backlash now for it. That's not something to be apologetic about. I'd say continue on the path that you're on, OP, not the asshole. Now in the comments, not the asshole. Major red flags I see, and he definitely is the asshole and owes you the apology. I just love how he throws a temper tantrum about her being too dramatic. You calmly explained that he was ruining it for you, and in his attempt to tell you how you're overdramatic, he acts like a toddler. Hypocrisy like that makes me laugh, and I would have probably done so in front of him. And remark that it's funny how he thinks him being a toddler was going to change how I felt about his ruining my movie, and laugh openly all the time at his hypocrisy. People like that, you shouldn't even waste time or energy engaging or getting mad at. You won't fix or change anything. You'll just make yourself tired in the end. He reminds me of the guy that yelled at me for being a drama queen and putting on a little scene for everyone when I talked calmly and he turned red and pounded the table. But you know us women, always full of the drama. Not the asshole. It's unfortunate that he can't see past his own self-interests. I do see some red flags here. In a healthy relationship, even if you don't get your partner's interests, you still show some respect. He could sit through the movie and then tell you at the end that it wasn't his preference. Instead, he is openly scoffing at your choices. There's a bit of gaslighting going on too. He was the one who set a disrespectful tone, and when you react accordingly, he tries to twist the situation to make you feel like the dramatic one. I realize that too often on Reddit, breakups are encouraged, but I really do think, at minimum, you need to take a hard look at your relationship. Yeah, cancel movie night, end this relationship. The way he belittles you ain't it. Seriously, he doesn't have to like everything she does, just not go out of his way to ruin it. How hard is it to just shut up for an hour or so and then say, wasn't really my thing? He's going out of his way to be crappy to her. Not a keeper. Throw that fish back in the pond. And not the asshole. I can't really say what I want to without violating some of the rules here about being civil, so I'll just say that he's treating you like crap. From how he's acting, your movies are garbage and he gets to rag on them as much as he wants, or else you're being childish. Yet you don't do the same back. That's not a basis for a loving relationship if he disrespects you that much and that easily. And OP replies, "It definitely hurts, but they're just movies and shouldn't affect me this much. My sister says I'm being too sensitive again and that I shouldn't let him not liking my movies affect me this much." Should doesn't exist, OP. It's just a projection. It does affect you this much, and that's valid. Your hurt is real. Put the effort there, not into the voice of should. Our next post is by user Autos Deluxe, titled, "Am I the asshole for giving a neighbor's bully kid 2 tellings off in the same evening?" So I, male 35, decided to take my daughter, who is 2.5, out for a walk around the block with her new scooter this evening. She's still learning to go on it, but when she gets a solid run at it, she's really good. As we were making our way around, I had noticed a couple of boys on bikes. I'd say they were between 10 to 12, passing us. They were doing fast laps on the road while we were sticking to the pavement. Suddenly, on one lap, one of the boys literally cut onto the pavement in front of us, blocking our path. He looked at my daughter and said, "Get off this street and don't come out until I tell you." His tone was definitely not lighthearted or funny. Now, my daughter is 2 and doesn't have a clue what's actually happened here, so she's smiling and waving. I, however, am unimpressed. I step between them and tell the boy, "If you threaten my daughter again, I'll take your bike, and when your parents come to get it, I'll tell them how nasty their son is." He did back off and we went on our way. Later, we went to the park just opposite our house. We were at the swings, and another girl came into the park, going on a swing near us. Then the same 2 boys rounded the corner, coming into the park, and making their way over to the girl. She quickly said, "Stay away from me. I've asked you before." The boys then laughed and ignored. I again intervened, and this time said, "She told you no. I suggest you get on your way before you get into more trouble." The girl then thanked me and left, and then we did too. The boys obviously noted what house I went to, because not long after, I got paid a house call by the mother, screaming at me for scaring her kids. I told her that her son was a complete piece of crap, trying to intimidate toddlers and girls. She said this wasn't over, and stormed off. Nothing has since happened, but my wife is saying that I took things too far. I don't agree, given that this brat is a complete bully based on the clear-cut examples I've seen today. However, I'm open to criticism. I think I might be the arsehole because it possibly isn't my place to scold children who I don't really know. Now in the comments, not the arsehole. It is completely your place to protect your 2-year-old from bullies, and I applaud you for stepping in when they were bullying the other girl. Maybe if mum would scare her kids a little with consequences, they wouldn't be out bullying toddlers. I'm guessing his home life is extra crappy, and the parenting that happens there is weak, either being gentle or non-existent. Not the arsehole. JMLKO says, not the arsehole. In my opinion, you had remarkable restraint for not getting really angry with the punk for threatening your toddler. Not the arsehole, but this is why video evidence is powerful. It sounds like a body cam or having your phone easily set to start recording would be a smart move, since the last thing you probably want is the cops knocking on your door for threatening a child. OP, this. What happens if you try to de-escalate appropriately again? They could spread false accusations of death threats or threats of violence against them. Having that video footage providing that you acted completely cordially and proving them to be threatening will keep you and others safe from false blame and will ensure the rats receive justice should they attempt to escalate things. Speaking of which, my experience is that it will be escalated in some way, so go with that guy's great advice. It could save you from the worst case scenario. Better to be prepared for nothing than screwed by something. Our next post is by user Evil13th, titled, "Am I the asshole for refusing to inconvenience myself over somebody else's problem?" So recently I moved into a new flat with my friend. We've looked into renting a flat specifically with a balcony because we're both smokers. To be honest, I'd probably be okay smoking in my room since I roll my own cigarettes, McBaron choice if anyone's interested, that don't have any horrid smell. But usually landlords, ours including, forbid this, and I don't want to risk it. The flat is on a second floor out of 4, and that's going to be important, though I guess just in a way that it's not the last floor. For 2 months, everything was good and dandy, but yesterday, I've had my first encounter with our upstairs neighbor. I went for a smoke after coming home from work at around 2 a.m., and as I'm standing on my balcony and enjoying my last ciggy of the day, I hear someone going, "Good evening, can you not smoke on your balcony?" I look above me, a little confused, and see someone sticking his head out of the window, saying, "Evening, and why should I not do it?" The neighbor then started a rant about how the smoke goes up and into his apartment, woke him up, how he's been patient for a while, but now can't take it anymore, how he has a right to a healthy life and doesn't want my filthy habits to impact it, and so on. He then suggests that I should smoke in the kitchen or go completely outside, because he doesn't like the smell. So you're saying I can't smoke in my apartment on the balcony because you don't like it? You mentioned you have a right to a healthy life. I don't have a right to do with mine whatever I want? I didn't come to your home and start smoking after all. Can't you just close your window and move on? To which he replied, "But it's hot outside. I don't want to close my window." Now at this point, I'm not confused anymore. I'm just startled from his sheer audacity. So let me get this straight. You don't like me smoking here at my place, but you don't want to inconvenience yourself by closing the window. Instead, you want me to do something differently, even though it's you who has a problem with how things are. That about right? Yes. Well, okay then, I replied, and lighted another roll-up, ignoring his following threats to pour cold water on me whenever I'm smoking. Since by the time I finished, he was still going on about pouring water. I simply said, "Yeah, you do that," and headed inside. So I guess the question is, am I the asshole here, or is he just an entitled jerk after all? Now in the comments, Find Me Elsewhere says, "You're the asshole if your smoke is blowing into his apartment. Yes, it's your balcony, but seriously, if it's going from your balcony to his apartment, then of course you are. Why should they have to suffer your second-hand smoke just because you don't want the inconvenience of smoking elsewhere?" People can argue all day about who has the rights and who should be inconvenienced, so I think this really just comes down to whatever rules have been set by whoever owns or manages the building. If people are allowed to smoke on their balconies, then there's not much the neighbor can do or say about it. I live in a condo, and the rule here is no smoking anything inside, but people are allowed to smoke on their balconies and patios. I don't smoke, and yes, sometimes the smell of other people's smoke comes into my condo if the wind is blowing it in my direction. I knew the rules before I moved in, and I agreed to them, so now I don't get to demand that all the smokers on my side of the building have to go somewhere else to smoke. This sub hates people with entitled attitudes who make demands of others, unless that demand is to tell someone they can't smoke a perfectly legal substance on the property that they pay to live with permission from the owner to do so. I get why people hate smokers, but if that's the case, they should live somewhere that explicitly prohibits all smoking. Well, it's generally legal to burn dog turds, but if you regularly do so and the smoke gets in your neighbor's house, people are going to think you're an asshole. People would probably think you're an asshole because that's not a common practice and completely unrelated to this. So you're saying how common a practice it is determines whether you're an asshole? That's not a very good way to decide such things. You're the asshole. Your blowing smoke all over is creating a health hazard that invades his space and prevents neighbors from healthily and happily enjoying their own balconies and homes, much like playing drums at 2 a.m. would. Your right to smoke on your balcony ends where the communal airspace and quality begins, unlike his right to not inhale toxins and enjoy the balcony that he's paying for. And it may well be against your landlord's policy/lease to smoke on balconies within X feet of the property. It's not allowed anywhere at my apartment, including balconies and the parking area. I loathe smokers, and their view that it's okay to pollute common space because others can just leave. Also, I guarantee you that your cigarettes, home-rolled or not, reek and still infiltrate his bedroom even with the windows closed. Houses draw ventilation from outside, and the filters don't cleanse smoke all the way out. And Illegitimate Cactus says, I'm gonna say not the asshole. You pay for the apartment and building, and unless it's specifically stated in your lease that you cannot smoke on the balcony, then you have every right to. All cigarettes smell like crap. It took me months after quitting to actually smell them, but even still. If your lease doesn't say that you can't smoke on your balcony, then he can close his windows. During the winter, I love having my windows open. I love the cold. My neighbors downstairs used to smoke, both weed and cigarettes, and we could smell it. So we'd close the windows while she smoked, and then opened them again. I went and had an adult conversation with her, and simply asked that after 1 a.m. she not smoke on her balcony, as that's when we went to bed. And we truly enjoyed having our windows open. She obligingly agreed, and it became a non-issue. She would either hop over her balcony on the first floor to smoke further away, or would go outside to the parking lot. Now, you need to check your lease, as it might explicitly state that you are not allowed to smoke on the premises. Also, plenty of apartments are fully non-smoking apartments, and if somebody has such an issue with smoke, then they can move into one of those. That's not your problem. Am I the asshole for telling off a friend that was trying to get my significant other to start dating them? Around a few days to a week ago, my friend group consisting of me, my significant other, and 2 other friends befriended a random guy who my friend thought was cool. Although he lived a decent amount away from us, he still found his way into our friend group. Even from the start, I just had a gut feeling about him. He was oddly flirty with my significant other. Of course, they didn't pick up on it as they're not the brightest. So a couple of days later, he was still flirting with them. I stepped up and called him out on it. He stated how he was just being friendly and that I'm being overprotective. At the time of calling him out, only him, another friend, and I were there. I was really passionate about my relationship, so I went off on him, cussing him out, etc. My other friends took his side and told me how sometimes I did worry too much, and to tone it down. We started arguing for about an hour before the guy left our friend group altogether. My friend started telling me how I just lost everyone here a friend, and how nice he was. I rolled my eyes and left. My significant other, still not knowing about what happened, the guy confronted them, and says, "It's kinda weird how your partner's with OP, isn't it? He was so rude and overprotective of you, I personally don't know what you see in him." This is what my significant other sent me after I asked what he said. Of course, they asked me about what happened, so I filled them in. My significant other is neutral in the situation at the moment, but my other friends are bitter about the fact that we lost him. Everyone there except for me wanted to have a giant group to hang with, and were really excited to have someone like that in their lives. I have a massive problem with overthinking, so I thought about it more. I could have just gave him a warning and he probably didn't know he was saying that. Of course, I'm still pissed how he was borderline manipulative to my significant other, but still. I feel as though we're both in the wrong, but I'm not sure. Am I the asshole? And edit, sorry for not explaining before, but I probably should have explained the type of flirting. He was heavily sexual and making a lot of tit jokes when we met, but toned it down a lot when he went into the friend group, although he was acting as if my significant other was single. He was saying that they were good looking and complimenting their skirts. I would have totally looked over that, but he didn't have that behavior towards anyone else in the group. I'm the only guy in the group. He moved closer and closer to them. I still didn't butt in until he started talking to me about them, talking about how I was a really lucky fella. The anger I described wasn't called for at all, but I bottle up my anger in really intense problems and release them all in small problems. Also, I've been using my significant other instead of boyfriend and girlfriend because they're non-binary. Now in the comments, Monkey at the Wheel says, honestly, you're the asshole. You call your significant other not the brightest, and say that you're passionate about my relationship, which reads to be as controlling given the context. You then proceed to argue for about an hour about this before the guy decided enough was enough and left. You don't have a massive problem with overthinking. You have a massive problem with overreacting. And I don't see how the guy was being borderline manipulative of your significant other at all. Take your friend's advice and tone it the F down next time. Right? As soon as I read the "my significant other is not the brightest," I was like, wow, I already know who the asshole is. Same. He followed it up by yelling at this guy for telling him he was a lucky fella. OP sounds like a rude hothead. He needs to get his crap together. The rest of the group sounds like they're women, and probably somebody wants to claim a new guy, and that's why they're mad. You're the asshole. You are controlling and jealous. You might as well have pissed in a circle around your significant other. Have some trust that your significant other is capable of making their own choice. If you don't build that trust, your relationship will go down in flames. And you're the asshole. Especially because the confrontation was about your significant other, but you didn't even communicate with them first. Perhaps if you communicated with your significant other about it, you would have gained some perspective and talked it out before it escalated. Instead, you chose to discredit them as not the brightest. Kind of disrespectful to say that of your significant other as well. I would apologize to that person. If you're the one uncomfortable by him, then maybe you're the one who needs to step back from the group for a bit and think about it. And OP replies, yeah, I was just blinded by anger at the moment and had no time to calm down nor think. The anger was definitely uncalled for. One of my friends is still in contact with him, so I'm going to apologize to him in the morning. I think most of us have had those feelings at one point or another. I'm guilty of overthinking too. I know it can make things a little cloudy sometimes, and it's healthy that you're willing to view the situation differently now. Have trust and always communicate. And our next post is by user Temp Account, titled, Am I the asshole for telling my wife I won't/can't watch our son? So I have a good job, I make good money, and I work hard enough to earn it. To the point that about 4 years ago, after our son was born, when my wife decided not to go back to work, I became the only source of income. This worked out well and everyone was happy until the pandemic hit. Once the pandemic started causing shutdowns, my role was transitioned from an in-office downturn to working from home. I was a big fan of this. I work 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday typically, so not having to commute meant that now I got to be home to put my son to bed and read to him at night and have more time to spend with my wife in the evenings. The only problem is that my wife has struggled with the idea that the location of my job has changed, but my responsibilities have not. I've had several discussions with her about the fact that even though I'm now home, I'm not able to watch our son during the day, or explaining why I can't get to the dishes till that evening. She will nod along, but I don't think she really believes it. This has caused tension, but not an outright fight until this week. Some of our mutual friends are coming into town this weekend, and we had made plans to spend time with them. However, on Monday, my wife informs me that the couple is actually getting in Friday, and she and her friend are going to get lunch and go shopping. She tells me that I will need to watch our son. I respond by saying that I can't, I have work, and Monday to Friday is not enough heads up for me to take a day off. She gets angry at me, saying that she watches our son every day, while I just sit in my office from sun up to sundown, and how I should be able to watch our son so she can have a day off. She's given me the cold shoulder since then. I would love to spend the day with my son, I just can't take time off on such short notice. Am I the asshole? In all honesty, I'm gonna go with everyone sucks here in this situation. Your wife does suck for the way she's reacted, knowing that you work 14-hour days and you can't take that time off. But at the same time, you suck for doing 14-hour days and I think in a way causing this disruption in your relationship. I know that 84-hour weeks are great for cash and they're great for building a future, but they don't leave you any time for anything else in your life, and ultimately, you are to blame for this problem as much as your wife is. I would call this a case of, yeah, you're right, but you're still an asshole. Just inherently, given the amount of hours you work and the fact that everything else gets put to the sideline because of that. Everyone sucks here. Now in the comments, Deckard Taverner says, "Not the arsehole, but working 14-hour days 6 days a week is simply not sustainable for any family or marriage." I was just going to say the same thing. It's great that he can provide, but the lack of time at home with family is taking its toll. What kind of job requires those hours anyway? And OP replies, "One working with coders from Seattle to Warsaw." And Pretty Cat replies to that, "Everyone sucks here. It's great that you're a good provider and can afford for your wife not to work, but you two probably should sit down and have a serious conversation, and you should probably reevaluate your working situation. She isn't in the right for trying to interrupt your work with something that's technically her job under the current division of labor, but I could see how she might be starting to feel like a single parent. Maybe all that will come from your conversation is her realizing that you stepping down in hours and making less money won't make either of you happy. Maybe she would rather work part-time and get more time with you, while splitting the house and family duties more evenly. You won't know until you talk." OP said there was no issue until he was forced to work from home. Chances are, it's just the fact that his wife sees him at home all day now instead of working all day, even though he is working all day. It's less likely that she has an actual issue with how much work he is doing. She seems to think that he sits around and does nothing all day just because he is working from home. It's also very possible for her feelings to have changed. When my baby was born, I was very happy as a stay-at-home parent, but these last few months I realized that was not something I wanted anymore. Everyone sucks here. Your wife is an asshole for expecting you to take time off rather last minute. You're an asshole because you're putting all of the child rearing on her, even if she is a stay-at-home mum. This boy is still your son. You working 14-hour days 6 days a week is freaking ridiculous. Very few relationships can even last with work hours like this. If I'm correct, you're a PM in a tech company. If this is the case, you a salary. You aren't getting paid more to work overtime. It really makes me wonder if you're dicking around your computer most of the day, which leads to these hours. That, or you work at a crappy company. While overtime is common in the tech industry, 80-plus hour weeks are not. Even the people I know making $200K a year in tech average 50 or so hour weeks. Something isn't right with this. You really need to start focusing on your family, or else you won't have them anymore. As a PM, I can attest that you sometimes have to work long or odd hours if your dev team is located differently. However, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week? That's just not sustainable. Yep, I'm a developer myself, and the only time I'm working over 40-hour weeks is when we're about to go live. 80-hour work weeks for months on end is a rarity. It really makes me think that he is using work to avoid going home. Our next post is by user somewhere beneath 6171, titled, "Am I the asshole for refusing to take care of the dog my wife promised to take care of?" So my wife and I have a pretty open and accepting relationship. A few weeks ago, my wife brought home a dog without even asking me first, and told me that he had been abandoned on the streets and she couldn't let him go. So after taking him to the vet and ensuring he would be safe to keep around our kids, I agreed that we could keep him, but that my wife would be the one caring for him, and she agreed. My wife is very reasonable, so I didn't have any reason to doubt her. But now my wife is upset that I'm not caring for the dog. I've done things like opening the door for him when he wants to go outside when my wife isn't home, but that's about it. But she's upset because I wait for her to feed him in the mornings, and she's not an early riser. So she thinks that I should take responsibility for feeding the dog because she has trouble waking up. But I didn't want the dog in the first place, and told her that it's her job, and we both agreed to it. She called me a jerk and told me that I was acting like a child, and that I just needed to feed a dog once in the mornings. But that wasn't part of the agreement. But my wife is pretty upset, and I want to see if she's really right about this. I don't want to argue with her, and I could be wrong about this. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I could be an asshole because feeding the dog isn't a big chore, and since he's part of the family now, I have an obligation to care for him instead of acting petty about it. Now in the comments, not the asshole. This might not be the popular opinion, but for me, pets should be a family/joint decision, and your wife made a sole decision to get a pet. You agreed on the condition/understanding that she would look after the pet. She now realizes how much work the dog is and wants to make you help. Sorry, but just because she isn't an early riser isn't a reason. Pets are like kids. You change your behavior around them. For example, getting up early or in the middle of the night, making sure you feed them, etc. Sit her down and have an honest conversation with her about expectations regarding the dog and care. This right here is the answer. You, not the asshole. Your wife isn't either, but she made a unilateral decision to bring home a dog and accepted responsibility. You said in an earlier comment that it wouldn't hurt you to feed the dog, but that wasn't the question. The question was, are you the asshole? And the answer is no. Not the asshole. She wanted the dog, you didn't. It's not like you're neglecting the dog or anything. There are some stories on Reddit of couples divided on having a dog, and a partner who didn't or wouldn't do anything at all, even let the dog go potty, then get mad when the dog pottied inside. If anyone is acting like a child, it's your wife. Like the scenarios when parents get their kid a dog, only on the grounds the kid takes responsibility for it, then they whine about looking after the dog. If your wife didn't want to get up early, then she shouldn't have gotten a dog. It's not your fault, nor is it the dog's fault that she doesn't like waking up early. If she really doesn't like waking to feed the dog, then maybe she can go get one of those automatic dog feeders. But there would still be the issue of walking the dog. Most dogs like plenty of walks and exercise. Could she get the children to help her with looking after the dog? Don't get dogs if you don't want to look after them right. It's not something you can pick and choose. And our next post is by user GreenSmile8008, titled, Am I the asshole for not wanting to share my college fund? So I have an aunt, Amy, 38 female, who I love and she loves me dearly. It's never been explicitly stated, but between my sister Kim and I'm the favorite. I didn't really notice. I was around my early teens, but whenever I had an event, my aunt would always try to be there, while she was never there for anything my sister did. I got nicer presents, there are pictures of me in her house, and she texts and calls me regularly. She barely acknowledges my sister, and I never knew why. One of the reasons why it took so long for me to notice was because whenever someone would mention something about the different treatment, our mum would brush it off. And since Amy was my paternal aunt, I just accepted it. Fast forward to now, and my mum sat me down and asked me if I would be willing to go to a less expensive school so I could have extra money to share with Kim. Aunt Amy set up a fund for me and my two cousins, but didn't have a dime for Kim. She did this with Kim looking at me for an answer and got upset that I didn't give a definite yes. She accused me of not caring about her just like Aunt Amy and is refusing to speak to me until I give her half the money. I thought that this was wildly unfair and asked my parents why they didn't have their own fund for Kim since Aunt Amy was taking care of me. They said that they did, but it wasn't as much as what Aunt Amy had for me. She's a smart woman who makes a lot of money, and admitted that they had to dip into it to help pay for things when my dad wasn't working because of the pandemic. I feel bad for Kim, but I don't want to sacrifice my future college experience for it. Am I really being so maliciously selfish? Edit to add, hey everyone. Sorry I haven't been responding. I had to run out and do some errands, but I wanted to address some questions and comments. 1. Growing up, I did notice that Aunt Amy had a bigger presence in my life, and she always had some excuse for not being in Kim's. For example, I have to work, I have prior commitments that I can't back out of, I'm sick, etc. 2. Yes, growing up I do recall that every now and then, me, my cousin or sister, would ask why Aunt Amy treated 3/4 of us differently, and the adults would act like we were being ridiculous and just brush it off. I always took this as us kids just making stuff up, and would trust that my parents, uncle, uncle's wife, or my paternal grandparents would step in and do something about it. Now that I'm older and starting to look back on things, I can now get a better understanding that it was indeed favoritism. 3. No, it has never crossed my mind that I may be my aunt's secret daughter. It also wouldn't explain why she spends time with me and my cousins, but leaves out Kim. If all of the attention was just on me, I would be more inclined to believe it, but for now, no. 4. I'm not going to rule it out 100%, but I'm going to say no to Kim and me having different dads. I'm older than her, and my parents were already married when I was born, and I don't believe that Kim is an affair baby, because it doesn't explain why only my Aunt Amy treats her differently. If my entire parental side treated Kim differently, I would feel more inclined to believe it. 5. In regards to the fund itself, I've never actually seen it, but I do know it's there because my aunt says it's there, and my twin cousins are already in college using it. I'm not too sure about the rules of the fund, because I just trust my aunt, but I will look into it. 6. I'm not saying that I'm unwilling to share any of the money, I just don't want to give up half because I really want to go to my school of choice, which is out of state and will be more expensive. And 7. One of the main reasons why I was so reluctant was because I felt put on the spot and was being cornered and pressured for an answer, which I resent. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I think I may be the asshole because I'm now aware of the clear favoritism that I've benefited from and feel bad that my sister may have to take out loans. Now in the comments, Illustrious Band 537 says, not the asshole. Amy can do what she likes with her money, and you should be able to go to whichever school you choose. However, I'm not surprised your parents haven't called Amy on this. If it was me, I'd need to sit down with Amy and ask her outright why there's favorites. And OP replies, that's something I've started to ask, now that I'm aware. My aunt always said that she loved her siblings' children equally, and whenever Kim complained growing up, my parents would brush it off. Everyone sucks here. You knew there was favoritism. You witnessed the favoritism, and it's quite hard to believe that you didn't take advantage of that favoritism. Let's be real for a minute. That being said, it was given to you, and it's yours to do with as you please. Your aunt is a giant asshole, and so are your parents for not being objective enough to see it when it started. Your sister will resent you. She's right to do so because you took advantage of the situation instead of calling it out and possibly having to share many years ago. You reap what you sow. My take on this is that it's a hell of a thing to be asked to give up a college fund, so I wouldn't blame OP if the answer was no. However, if her sister hates her for the rest of her life and thinks she's scummy, it would be hard to argue that the sister is wrong. I think the parents are broke. They should let the aunt take care of OP, and then they take care of all of Kim's college. If they're trying to use OP's money to help pay for Kim, it means they don't have any money to give Kim, or they're trying to save their money and not give it to Kim, which is screwed up. If I was the parents, I wouldn't give OP a dime and focus on taking care of my other kids since she doesn't have a guardian devil. And Socks Gone Wrong says, you're the asshole. Yes, of course you have no obligation to share your fund. It's within every right to go to the more expensive school and have your parents figure it out. However, I don't know how you could morally be okay with accepting all of this money, fully aware there was favoritism and your sister continues to get the crappy end of everything. If I had the opportunity to help my little sister, damn right I would split it with her. This is what I think, except everyone sucks here. How did all of the adults just let this happen for 17 years? There is no way I could accept all of this money with a clean conscience, knowing my sister had been screwed over her entire life for no reason. OP is an adult now, and if she accepts the money without splitting it with her sister, she is actively participating in what has been done to her sister her entire life, and her sister has every right to cut her off. It's not just about money. It's about not standing up for the right thing and watching people hurt her sister. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. Friendly reminder that I'm now posting daily on my second channel, Markee 2. If you want to laugh at memes with me, link is down in the description below. On phone, you just click that little arrow underneath the video. I also want to say thank you to all my channel members and Patreon subscribers. Your names are currently floating down the screen here, and I love to see all of you guys. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Thank you for supporting me. I really appreciate it. If you see yourself on screen, I want you to give yourself a big pat on the back for being amazing as always, and thank you for supporting me again. I do hope that you guys have a good day, night, sleep, whatever it is you're up to. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.